The cold metal floor pressed against Kang Dae-sung's face. His head pounded with pain and bright lights made his eyes water. He tried to move, but his hands were locked in strange metal cuffs behind his back. Slowly, the memories came back to him. The mission had been simple. Take the ship New Horizon through the Helix Nebula. Map the star systems. Look for planets that humans could use someday. His crew of 30 people had done this work many times before. It should have been safe. But then the alarms had screamed. Red lights filled every hallway. The ship shook so hard that Dae-sung fell from his captain's chair. Through the front window he saw it. A massive warship. Dark green and covered in sharp edges like a predator's teeth. It was 10 times bigger than his small exploration vessel. Vrelians, his navigator Lee Hae-won had whispered, her face going pale. Everyone in space knew about the Vrelians. They were reptile-like aliens with scales that changed colors based on their mood. They were warriors who took what they wanted. They were cruel. The Vrelian ship had fired some kind of weapon. Not missiles or lasers, but something that made all the electronics in the New Horizon stop working. The lights died. The engines went silent. Even the communication systems shut down. They were floating in space, helpless. Dae-sung had tried to give orders, tried to organize his crew, but then the boarding party came. Vrelian soldiers in dark armor burst through the airlocks. They moved fast, their weapons making a buzzing sound that knocked people unconscious. Dae-sung saw his chief engineer, Park Jin-woo, get hit by one of those weapons. Jin-woo dropped like a stone. Then something hit Dae-sung from behind and everything went dark. Now he was here. Wherever here was, Dae-sung pushed himself up to his knees. He was in a cell with walls made of some kind of crystal that glowed with a soft blue light. He could see through the walls, but they were thick and strong. Outside his cell, more cells stretched in both directions. He could see other humans in some of them. "His crew, his responsibility, Captain," a voice called out. It was Hae-won. She was 3 cells away, pressed against her crystal wall. "Are you okay?" "I'm alive," Dae-sung called back. His throat hurt when he talked. "Is everyone accounted for?" "I can see maybe 15 of us from here," Hae-won said. "I don't know about the others." Dae-sung's heart sank. 30 crew members. Where were the rest? He tried to stand, but his legs felt weak. The cuffs on his wrists made everything harder. He managed to get to his feet and walk to the wall of his cell. Down the hallway, he could see more cells. In one, he spotted Choi Soo-jin, his medical officer. She was young, only in her late 20s, but she was brilliant. She had her eyes closed and seemed to be breathing slowly, staying calm. Good. A door opened at the end of the hallway. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed off the crystal walls. Dae-sung watched as a group of Vrelians walked toward the cells. They were tall, maybe 7 feet, with long arms and legs. Their scales were dark green with patterns of yellow and black. They wore armor that looked like it was made from some kind of bone. The Vrelian in front was clearly the leader. He had scars across his face and arms. His scales were darker than the others, almost black in some places. A long weapon hung from his belt, something between a sword and a whip. The Vrelian leader stopped in front of Dae-sung's cell. He pressed something on his armor and a voice came out. It was speaking Korean, but it sounded wrong. Mechanical. "I am Commander Thexrel of the Vrelian Empire," the voice said. "You are Captain Kang Dae-sung of the human ship New Horizon. You are now property of the Empire." Dae-sung made himself stand straight. He would not show fear. "We were in neutral space. You had no right to attack us." The commander's scales rippled, changing to a dark red color. Through the translator, something that might have been a laugh came out. "Neutral space? Foolish human. This area belongs to the Vrelian Empire. It has belonged to us for 10,000 years. Your species has only been in space for what? 200 years? Less? We checked all the star maps. No species had claimed this region. Because we do not need to put marks on maps like children," Thexrel said. His scales shifted to a deep purple now. "This is our ancestral territory. Your kind has been expanding too fast, too far. You think you can go anywhere you want. Take any planet. Use any resource. This ends now." Dae-sung felt cold fear in his stomach, but he kept his voice steady. "What do you want?" "Information," the commander said. "About your military. About your colonies. About your defenses. You will tell us everything. I'm an exploration captain. I don't know military secrets. You will tell us what you do know, or you will suffer." Thexrel moved closer to the crystal wall. His eyes were large and yellow with thin black slits for pupils. They looked at Dae-sung like he was an insect. I will give you time to think. One rotation of this ship through space. When I return, you will cooperate. And if I don't? The commander's scales rippled again. This time they turned almost white. Through the translator, the mechanical voice somehow managed to sound pleased. Then you will meet the Drekmor. It is a creature from our home world. A predator unlike anything your species has ever encountered. It does not kill quickly. It feeds on fear itself. Every species we have exposed to the Drekmor has broken. Some die from terror alone. Their hearts simply stop. The other Vrelians behind their commander made sounds that might have been laughter. No one has ever withstood the Drekmor. Thexral continued. You will beg to tell us everything you know. You will beg for death, and we will broadcast your suffering to every human colony in this sector. Your species will learn to fear us. They will learn that Vrelian space is forbidden. Daesung felt the fear growing inside him, but he thought of his crew. He thought of Heiwan and Jinwoo and Sujin and all the others. He thought of Earth. He could not let this alien break him. I have nothing to tell you, Daesung said quietly. Commander Thexral's scales flashed bright red. Then you will meet the beast, and you will scream. He turned and walked away, his soldiers following. The door at the end of the hallway closed with a heavy sound. In the silence that followed, Daesung heard Heiwan's voice again. Captain, what are we going to do? Daesung pressed his hand against the crystal wall. He did not have an answer. Not yet, but he knew one thing. He would not give these creatures what they wanted. Whatever this Drekmor was, he would face it. He had to. For his crew. For humanity. The lights in the crystal cells dimmed slowly, and Daesung sat down on the cold floor to wait. The wait felt like forever. Daesung sat in his crystal cell, watching the lights slowly cycle from bright to dim and back again. He tried to count the cycles, tried to keep track of time, but it was hard to focus. His mind kept going back to the commander's words. The Drekmor, a creature that fed on fear. Around him he could hear his crew talking quietly. Some were crying. Others were trying to make plans, but what could they do? They were locked in cells on an alien warship, far from any help. The nearest human colony was weeks away, and no one knew where they were. Captain, Sujin's voice came from down the hallway. Whatever happens, don't let them see you break. That's what they want. I know, Daesung called back. He wished he felt as brave as he was trying to sound. Time passed. Then the door opened again. This time, many Vrelian soldiers came through. They went to Daesung's cell, and the crystal wall somehow melted away like water. 4 soldiers grabbed him, pulling him to his feet. The cuffs on his wrists stayed locked. Where are you taking him? Heiwan shouted. The Vrelians did not answer. They dragged Daesung down the hallway. As they passed the other cells, he saw his crew pressing against the walls, watching. He tried to memorize their faces, tried to look strong for them. They went through many corridors. The ship was huge, with high ceilings and walls covered in strange patterns. Other Vrelians watched as they passed. Some pointed at Daesung. Others made sounds that might have been excitement. Finally, they reached a massive door that was at least 30 feet tall. The soldiers stopped, and one of them pressed his hand against a panel. The door began to open slowly, and Daesung could hear sounds from inside. Voices. Many voices. They pushed him through the door, and Daesung's mouth fell open. He was standing in an enormous arena. It was circular, maybe 200 feet across, with a floor made of dark metal. Around the edges, seats rose up in rows, going higher and higher until they reached the ceiling far above, and every seat was filled with Vrelians, hundreds of them, maybe thousands. The soldiers pushed Daesung to the center of the arena. The metal floor was cold under his feet. They removed the cuffs from his wrists, then quickly backed away, leaving him alone in the center. Above him, he could see balconies with crystal walls. Behind those walls, he spotted humans, his crew. They had been brought here to watch. Daesung, Heiwan's voice echoed down from one of the balconies. She was pressing against the crystal, her face twisted with fear and anger. Next to her, Jinwoo was there, and Sujin and others, all forced to watch whatever was going to happen. A platform descended from above. Standing on it was Commander Thexral. When the platform reached the arena floor, he stepped off and walked to the edge, staying safely away from the center. He pressed his translator. People of the Vrelian Empire, his mechanical voice boomed out, echoing through the arena. Today we show these humans why they should fear us, why they should never enter our territory again. The crowd of Vrelians roared. The sound was like 1,000 snakes hissing at once. This human refused to cooperate, Thexrel continued. He refused to give us the information we demanded. So he will face the Drekmor. He will face the creature that has broken every species we have ever tested. He will learn that fear is our weapon and no one can resist it. The crowd roared again. Some of them were standing now, excited. Daesung's heart was beating so fast he could hear it in his ears. His hands were shaking. He looked up at his crew at Haywan watching from above, and he tried to stand straight. Tried to look braver than he felt. The Drekmor, Thexrel said, his scales turning bright red, comes from Vrel Prime, our homeworld. It is a predator from the deep caves where no light reaches. It hunts in the dark and it kills without mercy. But more than its claws or teeth, the Drekmor has a gift. It projects fear directly into the minds of other creatures. Pure primal terror that makes prey freeze or run mad. The commander looked at Daesung. Vrelian warriors train for years to stand in its presence. Some never succeed. They break during training and must leave the military. And you, human, with your weak mind, you will last perhaps seconds before you beg for mercy. I'm not afraid of you, Daesung said, though his voice shook. You should be, Thexrel said. Release the Drekmor. The lights in the arena dimmed. Daesung heard a grinding sound, metal moving against metal. On the far side of the arena, a huge gate began to lift slowly. Behind it was only darkness. The crowd of Vrelians fell silent. Even they seemed tense. From the darkness, Daesung heard breathing. Heavy, wet breathing. Then he saw movement. The creature that came out of the gate was something from a nightmare. It was huge, at least 12 feet tall. It had 6 legs, each one thick and powerful, ending in claws that looked like black crystal. Its body was covered in plates of armor that seemed to absorb the light, making it hard to look at directly. The head was the worst part. It was like an insect's head, but wrong. Too many eyes, at least 9 of them, glowing with a sick yellow light. Mandibles clicked together and something dripped from them, glowing green in the dim light. But worse than what Daesung could see was what he could feel. A wave of fear hit him like a physical force. His knees almost gave out. Every instinct in his body screamed at him to run, to hide, to do anything to get away from this creature. His vision started to blur. His chest felt tight. He couldn't breathe properly. This was terror. Pure and absolute. The kind of fear that came from deep in the ancient parts of the human brain. From the days when humans were prey animals hiding from predators in the dark. The Drekmor moved forward slowly, its 6 legs clicking on the metal floor. Its eyes were fixed on Daesung. The psychic waves of fear got stronger with each step it took. Above, Daesung could hear Haiwan screaming his name. Other crew members were shouting too. Some were crying. The Vrelians in the stands were leaning forward, watching, waiting for the human to break, waiting for him to fall to his knees and beg, waiting for the entertainment. Daesung's legs were shaking so badly he could barely stand. Sweat poured down his face. His heart felt like it was going to explode. The fear was overwhelming, drowning him. But through the fear, through the panic, a memory came to him. He was 12 years old, standing in a field in Korea. The land had been dead for decades, poisoned by pollution and neglect. But humans were trying to fix it, trying to bring life back. His family was part of that work. An old man stood next to him, Dr. Yoon Hyun-sik, the animal behaviorist who was teaching him. They were watching a wolf that had just been released into the restored wilderness. The wolf was beautiful and terrifying, with yellow eyes and teeth that could tear flesh. "Are you afraid?" the old man had asked. "Yes," young Daesung had admitted. "Good," Dr. Yoon had said. "Fear is information. It tells you there is danger. But fear is not instruction. It does not tell you what to do." He had placed a hand on Daesung's shoulder. "Watch the animal. Really watch it. Let it tell you what it needs." The memory faded, but the lesson remained. Daesung forced himself to breathe, forced himself to look at the Drekmor. Really look at it. The creature was still coming toward him, but now Daesung tried to see past the fear. He watched how it moved. He watched its body language, and he saw something the Vrelians did not see. The Drekmor's legs were spread wide, not in an attack stance, but in a defensive one. Its eyes were not focused in a predatory way. They were dilated completely, showing white around the yellow. Its mandibles were held tight against its face, not loose and relaxed. The bioluminescent patterns on its armor were flickering. Rapidly, these were not the signs of a predator hunting. These were the signs of an animal that was terrified. The Drekmore was not projecting fear to hunt. It was projecting fear because it was afraid. The realization hit Daesung like lightning. This creature, this nightmare monster that the Vrelians used as a weapon, was scared. It was being forced to do something it did not want to do. Just like him, just like his crew. The fear was still there, pounding through his body like waves. His hands still shook. His heart still raced. But now Daesung understood. The fear was not coming from evil or hatred. It was coming from a terrified animal that had probably been captured, trapped, and tortured into being a weapon. Dr. Yoon's words came back to him again. The fiercest creatures are often the most afraid. They use aggression to protect themselves because they see no other choice. But if you show them they are safe, if you show them calm, sometimes they can find peace. The Drekmore was now only 20 feet away. The Vrelians in the crowd were completely silent, waiting for Daesung to collapse or run. Up in the balcony, his crew was shouting, but he could not focus on their words. Daesung made a decision. It might be stupid. It might get him killed, but he had to try. Slowly, fighting every instinct in his body, Daesung lowered himself to the ground. He sat down cross-legged on the cold metal floor. Then he did something even harder. He looked away from the Drekmore. He lowered his gaze to the floor, making himself vulnerable. In animal behavior, direct eye contact was often a threat. Predators stared at their prey before attacking. But looking away, making yourself smaller, these were signs of non-aggression. Signs that you were not a threat. The arena erupted in confused sounds. The Vrelians began talking loudly to each other. What was the human doing? Was he giving up? Was he going mad from fear? What is this? Commander Thexeral's voice boomed through his translator. Human, you cannot escape by sitting. The Drekmore will tear you apart. But Daesung did not respond to the commander. Instead, he began to breathe slowly. In through his nose, out through his mouth, deep, calm breaths. Dr. Yoon had taught him this too. Animals could sense fear through body language, through smell, through the energy a person gave off. But they could also sense calm. The Drekmore stopped moving. Daesung could feel its confusion through the psychic waves. The overwhelming terror began to flicker, like a light with a bad connection. The creature made a sound, something between a hiss and a chirp. Daesung kept breathing slowly. Then he began to speak. Not in Korean or English or any language that could be understood. He spoke in the soft, rhythmic tones that worked across species. The same kind of sounds that humans had used to calm horses, to soothe dogs, to gentle frightened cats. Shh, he said softly. It's okay. You're okay. The words did not matter. The tone did. Calm, non-threatening, peaceful. Captain, what are you doing? Haewon's voice came from above, sounding terrified. Daesung did not answer her either. He kept all his focus on the creature. The Drekmore tilted its head. Its 9 eyes blinked, not all at once, but in a wave from left to right. It took one careful step forward, then stopped again. The psychic waves of fear were still there, but they were getting weaker. More confused. Up in the stands, the Vrelians were getting agitated. This was not supposed to happen. Their weapon, their tool of terror, was not attacking. Some of them started shouting. Commander Thexeral's scales flashed bright red. Handlers, he roared. Stimulate the Drekmore. Make it attack. From hidden doors in the arena walls, 3 Vrelians in heavy armor rushed out. They carried long poles with glowing tips. Daesung recognized them immediately. Pain sticks, weapons designed to cause agony without killing. The handlers moved toward the Drekmore, raising their poles. No, Daesung shouted, his voice echoing through the arena. Don't! You're hurting it! But the handlers did not listen. They jabbed the poles into the Drekmore's side. The creature screamed, a sound so terrible that several Vrelians in the crowd covered their ears. The psychic wave of fear exploded outward, stronger than before, and Daesung felt like his skull was going to split open. The Drekmore spun toward the handlers, its mandibles opening wide. It was going to attack them, going to kill them, and Daesung knew it would be justified. They were torturing it, but if it killed them, the Vrelians would kill it. And probably kill Daesung and his crew too. Stop! Daesung stood up, moving without thinking. He stepped between the Drekmore and the handlers. Leave it alone. Can't you see? It doesn't want to be here. It doesn't want to hurt anyone. One of the handlers swung his pain stick at Daesung. The glowing tip hit his shoulder and white-hot agony exploded through his body. He fell to his knees, gasping. The Drekmore made a sound unlike any it had made before. A roar of pure rage, it reared up on its back legs, becoming even taller, more terrifying. Its claws extended, ready to tear the handlers apart. "Please," Daesung gasped through the pain. He looked up at the creature. "Don't, they're scared too. Everyone here is scared. Please." For a long moment, everything froze. The handlers stood with their weapons ready. The Drekmor loomed above them all, capable of killing them all in seconds. Daesung knelt on the floor, his shoulder burning with pain, looking at the creature with tears in his eyes. Then slowly, the Drekmor lowered itself back down. Its claws retracted. The rage in its psychic projection faded, replaced by something else, something that felt almost like sadness. "Get back," Commander Thexral's voice commanded. The handlers retreated quickly, confused and frightened. Daesung stayed on his knees. The pain in his shoulder was terrible, but he kept his breathing slow, kept his voice soft. "It's okay," he said again to the creature. "You're okay. I'm sorry they hurt you. I'm sorry." The Drekmor moved closer, its massive head lowered toward Daesung. This close, he could see details. The eyes were not just yellow. They had flecks of blue and green in them, like opals. The armor plates were not just black. They had rainbows hidden in them, colors that shifted when the creature moved. It was beautiful. In a terrible alien way, it was beautiful. One of the creature's mandibles extended toward Daesung. He could see the venom glistening on it, glowing green. One drop of that venom could probably kill him. But the mandible moved slowly, carefully. It touched his injured shoulder, so gentle that it barely made contact. The mandible was cool against his skin. The Drekmor was examining him, maybe even trying to understand him. Daesung slowly raised his hand. His whole arm was shaking, but he lifted it until his palm was just inches from the creature's head. He waited, giving the Drekmor a choice. "May I?" he whispered. The creature's eyes blinked again in that wave pattern. Then incredibly it moved its head forward. The armor plate on its head touched Daesung's palm. It was warm, alive, real. Daesung gently placed his hand on the creature's head. He could feel it trembling under his touch. This terrible weapon, this nightmare beast, was shaking like a frightened child. "It's okay," Daesung said one more time. "You're not alone anymore." The psychic waves changed completely. The fear was still there, but mixed with it now was something new. Curiosity. Hope. And underneath it all, a loneliness so deep it made Daesung's heart ache. How long had this creature been alone? How long had it been used as a weapon, feared by everyone, shown no kindness? Up in the balcony, Sujin was speaking quickly to the other crew members. "Do you see? He's doing it. He's actually doing it, just like he did with the Mars colony cats. Remember?" Jinwoo nodded slowly, his eyes wide. "Those cats were half feral, attacking everyone. But he spent weeks with them, taught them to trust again." "This is bigger than cats," Haewon whispered. "This is impossible, but it was happening." In the center of the arena, Kang Daesung sat down again, and the Drekmor settled down beside him. The creature folded its 6 legs beneath its body. Its head remained close to Daesung's hand. The entire arena of Vrelians watched in complete silence. This had never happened before. In all the generations they had used the Drekmor, in all the species they had terrorized with it, no one had ever reacted like this. Daesung continued to speak softly, continued to keep his hand on the creature's head. And slowly the Drekmor's body began to relax. The tension left its muscles. The bioluminescent patterns on its armor stopped flickering and began to glow with a steady, soft light. Then the creature made a new sound. A deep rumbling sound that came from inside its body. It was something between a purr and a hum, a thrumming that Daesung could feel through his hand. It was contentment. And then, to the absolute shock of every being in that arena, the Drekmor closed all 9 of its eyes and went to sleep. The silence in the arena was complete. Not a single Vrelian moved. They stared at the impossible scene before them. The most feared predator in their empire, the weapon that had broken countless species, was sleeping peacefully next to a human. Its psychic projection had changed from terror to something that felt almost like peace. Daesung sat very still, his hand resting on the Drekmor's head. He could feel the creature breathing, slow and steady. The thrumming sound continued, vibrating through the metal floor. It was the sound of a creature finally feeling safe. Commander Thexral stood at the edge of the arena, his scales flickering rapidly through colors. Red to purple to white to black. Daesung did not know what each color meant, but he could guess the commander was experiencing many emotions: confusion, anger, maybe even fear. "This is sorcery," one of the Vrelians in the crowd shouted. "The human has used some kind of trick." Other voices joined in. Some agreed it must be a trick. Others demanded the human be killed immediately. Still others simply sat in stunned silence. Thexrel pressed his translator. His mechanical voice boomed out, but it sounded less confident than before. "The human has somehow deceived the Drekmor. This changes nothing. It changes everything," a voice called from the balcony. It was Sujin. She was pressed against the crystal wall, speaking loudly enough for her voice to carry. "Don't you see? Your creature isn't a mindless weapon. It's a living being that has been tortured into aggression." "Silence!" Thexrel commanded. "You humans know nothing of the Drekmor. We have controlled it for generations." "Controlled?" Daesung spoke up, his voice calm but strong. "You mean imprisoned, hurt, forced to do what it didn't want to do." He kept his hand on the sleeping creature. "This being isn't evil. It was terrified. I could feel it. Its fear was so strong it projected it outward, and you mistook that for a weapon." "Impossible," Thexrel said, but his scales were flickering faster now. "Is it?" Daesung carefully stood up, moving slowly so he would not wake the Drekmor. The creature shifted slightly but remained asleep. "Humans have a long history with predators. We were prey once, did you know that? For millions of years we were hunted by animals stronger and faster than us. Big cats, bears, wolves, we should have gone extinct." He took a step forward, still keeping his voice calm. "But we didn't. We learned to understand predators. We learned that they weren't monsters. They were just animals trying to survive, like us. And eventually, we learned to live with them. We even became friends with some of them." "Lies," Thexrel said. "No species befriends predators." From the balcony, Haywan spoke up. "He's telling the truth. On Earth, we domesticated wolves, turned them into dogs. They guard our homes now, play with our children. We ride horses that could kill us with one kick. We study sharks and whales in the ocean. We learn from them instead of just fearing them." Jin Wu added. "The captain grew up in the restoration zones. His family helped bring back ecosystems that humans had destroyed. He worked with wild animals his whole life. He knows things about creatures that most humans never learn." Thexrel looked at Daesung, then at the sleeping Drekmor, then back at Daesung. "You are saying we have been using the Drekmor wrong? For 10,000 years? "I'm saying you've been hurting it," Daesung said gently. "Making it afraid, then using its fear as a weapon against others. But look at it now. When was the last time you saw the Drekmor peaceful? When was the last time it wasn't in pain or terror?" A voice came from the crowd of Vrelians. "Never," it said. The voice was younger, less harsh than the commander's. A Vrelian stood up in the stands. He was smaller than the others, with scales that were bright green. "I am Vextil Arena Keeper. I have cared for the Drekmor for 5 years. In all that time I have never seen it rest. It is always agitated, always afraid. Vextil, be silent," Thexrel commanded, but Vextil did not sit down. "No, Commander. I have wanted to speak of this for years. But speaking against tradition means shame. But this human shows us something we refuse to see. The Drekmor suffers. It has always suffered." Other young Vrelians began to stand, not many but enough to be noticed. One female Vrelian with bright yellow scales spoke. "My grandfather told me stories of the old ways. Before we became a military empire, he said we once lived in harmony with the creatures of Vrel Prime, even the dangerous ones. He said we lost our way when we chose conquest over understanding." Thexrel's scales flashed bright red. "These are the words of weaklings. We are Vrelians. We are warriors. We do not befriend beasts. We master them." "Do you?" Daesung asked quietly. He gestured to the sleeping Drekmor. "Look at it. Really look at it. You've been using pain and fear to control it, but has it ever been loyal to you? Has it ever chosen to obey you? Or does it simply do what it must to avoid more pain?" The commander did not answer. "In my grandfather's stories," the yellow-scaled Vrelian continued, "the Drekmor were not weapons. They were guardians. They lived in the deep caves and kept the balance of nature. We honored them. We did not cage them. Enough," Thexrel roared. But his scales were turning darker, almost black. Daesung had learned enough about Vrelian colors to recognize this one. It was shame. A movement caught Daesung's eye. The Drekmore was waking up. Its eyes opened one by one, that wave pattern again. It lifted its head and looked around the arena. For a moment, Daesung worried it might become afraid again, seeing all the Vrelians watching. But instead, the creature looked at Daesung. Its eyes seemed to recognize him. Remember him? The thrumming sound started again, that contented purr. Daesung slowly reached out his hand again, and the Drekmore pressed its head against his palm. The Vrelians in the arena made sounds of amazement. This was something from ancient stories, something they thought was myth, a Drekmore showing affection. How did you do this? Bextel called down. What magic do humans possess? Not magic, Daesung said. Just patience, and the willingness to see past our fear. He looked around at all the Vrelians watching. You use fear as a weapon because you are terrified. Of other species, of change, of being weak. But humans learned something important a long time ago. Fear is just the beginning. It warns us of danger, yes, but it doesn't have to control us. After fear comes understanding. After understanding comes respect. And after respect comes trust. He gestured to the Drekmore. This creature could kill everyone in this arena in minutes. But it doesn't want to. It never wanted to. It just wanted to be left alone, to be safe, to be understood. Sujin spoke from the balcony again. Commander Thexral, I am a xenobiologist. I study alien life. May I offer my analysis? The commander looked up at her. His scales were still dark. After a long pause, he pressed his translator. Speak. I have been monitoring the biosigns in this arena through my medical scanner that your soldiers did not confiscate. The Vrelians in this room are experiencing extreme fear responses. Elevated heart rates, hormone spikes, all the signs of terror, but not from the Drekmore. From the situation. From seeing your weapon refuse to be a weapon. She paused, then continued. You are more afraid of the Drekmore than any species you have forced to face it. You hide behind armor and weapons and cages because you fear it more than anything. The humans in this room are also afraid, yes. But our captain taught himself to see past that fear. Something your species has forgotten how to do. The silence that followed was heavy. Daesung could see Vrelians in the crowd looking at each other. Scales were flickering through many colors. Conversations were starting. Thexral stood frozen at the edge of the arena. His scales had turned a deep dark blue. Finally he spoke. What you suggest is impossible. We cannot change 10,000 years of tradition. Why not? Daesung asked. Traditions are made by people. They can be changed by people. Humans have changed our ways many times. We were destroyers once, poisoning our own planet. Now we restore it. We were conquerors once, fighting each other. Now we explore together. He looked at the Drekmore and then back at Thexral. It's not too late for you to change too. The Drekmore stood up on its 6 legs. For a moment, tension filled the arena. But the creature did not attack. Instead, it moved closer to Daesung, positioning itself next to him. Almost like it was protecting him. Thexral saw this and his scales flickered rapidly. This cannot be, he whispered. But his translator made sure everyone heard. The arena had transformed from a place of entertainment to something else. A place where everyone was forced to think about things they had never questioned. Vrelians were talking among themselves, their scales showing many different colors. Some were angry. Some were confused. Some looked thoughtful. Commander Thexral stood at the edge of the arena watching Daesung and the Drekmore. The creature had positioned itself protectively next to the human. Its body relaxed but alert. It was not showing aggression toward anyone, but it was clear it would defend Daesung if needed. This changes nothing, Thexral said finally, but his voice lacked confidence. You are still prisoners. You still invaded Vrelian territory. We didn't invade, Daesung said calmly. We explored. We had no idea this area was claimed. If you had simply told us to leave, we would have. Instead, you attacked us, imprisoned us, tried to torture information from us, and you tried to use this innocent creature to break us. The Drekmore is not innocent, Thexral snapped. It is a predator. It has killed many beings. When forced to, Daesung replied. When hurt and scared and given no choice. But look at it now. Given kindness, given understanding, it chooses peace. That tells you something about its nature, doesn't it? Bextel, the young arena keeper, descended from the stands. He approached the edge of the arena carefully, his scales showing a pale green color that might have been hope. Captain Daesung, he called out. If what you say is true, could you teach us? Could you show us how to care for the Drekmore properly? Vextil. Vexril turned on the young Vrelian. You overstep your position. No, Commander, Vextil said, and his voice was steady. I am doing my duty. My duty is to care for the Drekmore. For 5 years I have fed it, cleaned its cage, maintained its cell, but I have never cared for it. Not truly. I have kept a prisoner, not a living being. The human shows me this in one day. Should I ignore this lesson because of pride? Other young Vrelians began to descend from the stands. The yellow-scaled female joined Vextil. More followed. Not all of them, but enough to show a divide was forming. An old Vrelian, his scales faded with age, stood up in the front row. I remember my grandfather's stories, he said in a creaking voice. Before the expansion, before the wars, we were different then. We were not conquerors. We were explorers, seekers of knowledge. He looked at Thexral. Perhaps these humans are what we once were. Perhaps they show us what we have lost. Thexral's scales were flickering rapidly now, shifting through colors so fast it was hard to follow. Daesung recognized the signs of someone whose entire worldview was being challenged. It was not easy. It was never easy to admit that everything you believed might be wrong. From the balconies, Haywan called down, Commander, we didn't come here to threaten you. We didn't come here to take your territory or harm your people. We came to explore, to learn, to maybe make friends with species we had never met before. That's what humans do. We're curious. We want to understand, Jinwu added. Look at your own people. The divide is already there. Some of them want to hold on to the old ways of fear and conquest. Others want something different. Something better. Which side of history will you be on? Thexral looked around at his crew. At the young Vrelians who had come down to the arena floor, scales showing colors of hope and curiosity. At the older Vrelians who remembered different times. At those in the stands who were arguing among themselves, questioning everything they had been taught. Then he looked at Daesung and the Drekmore, at the impossible sight of a human and the Empire's greatest weapon standing together in peace. Finally, the commander's scales settled on a dark blue color. He pressed his translator and spoke. What you have done here today has created chaos. My crew is divided. My certainty is shaken. You have shown me something I did not expect to see. What is that? Daesung asked. That perhaps humans are more dangerous than I thought, Thexral said, but not in the way I expected. You do not conquer with weapons. You conquer with ideas, with compassion. That may be more powerful than any military force. It was not quite an admission of defeat, but it was close. Daesung sensed an opening. Commander, I don't want to conquer anyone. I just want to go home. My crew wants to go home. But more than that, I want this creature to have a better life. He placed his hand on the Drekmore's head again. Let us help you. Let us show you what we've learned about living with dangerous creatures. Not as masters and slaves, but as cohabitants of the same galaxy. Thexral was silent for a long time. The entire arena waited. Finally, he spoke. I cannot simply release you. My superiors would question my authority, but he paused. But I can open a diplomatic channel to your Earth government. I can propose talks between our species. And I can allow you to work with our handlers, to teach them about the Drekmore. In exchange for this knowledge, your crew will be given comfortable quarters and treated as guests, not prisoners. It's a start, Daesung said. Sujin called down from the balcony. Commander, I would like to formally request permission to study the Drekmore. With respect and care, not as an experiment, but as a patient who has suffered trauma. Thexral looked up at her. You are a healer? A doctor, yes. And a xenobiologist. I study alien life forms. I want to understand the Drekmore's biology, its needs, its psychology. If it has been traumatized, there may be ways to help it heal. The commander considered this. Then he nodded slowly. Granted. But you will work under the supervision of Vextil and our other handlers. Of course, Sujin agreed. Over the next several hours, the arena slowly emptied. The Vrelian crew returned to their duties. But Daesung could see them looking back, still processing what they had witnessed. The human crew was taken to better quarters as promised. They were no longer in crystal cells, but in actual rooms with beds and food. Daesung remained in the arena with the Drekmore, Vextil, and several other Vrelian handlers. Sujin joined them, along with Jinwu, who wanted to study the engineering of the creature's cage to see if it could be improved. The first thing you need to understand, Daesung told the Vrelians, is that every creature needs space, proper food, and enrichment. The Drekmore is intelligent. Keeping it in a small cage with nothing to do is torture. But if we give it too much freedom, it might escape, one handler said nervously. Not if it doesn't want to escape. Dae-sung replied. Look at it now. I'm not restraining it. I'm not threatening it. But it stays near me because it feels safe. The Drekmore was indeed staying close to Dae-sung. It occasionally wandered a few feet away to explore, but always came back. Its psychic projection was calm, curious. Nothing like the weapon of terror it had been hours ago. Soo-jin ran her medical scanner over the creature with Vextil's help. This is fascinating, she murmured. Its biology is unlike anything I've seen. The psychic projection ability comes from an organ in its brain that generates electromagnetic fields. It's not intentional. It's automatic, like how humans sweat when nervous. So it cannot control its fear projection? Vextil asked. It can learn to, probably, Soo-jin said. With training and trust. But forcing it to project terror through pain and stress only makes it worse. The creature has been in a constant state of panic. That's why the fear projection was so strong. Dae-sung spent time showing the handlers how to read the Drekmore's body language, how the angle of its mandibles showed mood, how the bioluminescent patterns indicated stress or calm, how the eyes dilating or contracting revealed fear or aggression. You have to watch and listen, he explained. Animals tell you what they need if you pay attention. One handler, an older Vrelian named Grath, was skeptical. But it is a predator. Surely it wants to hunt to kill? Of course it's a predator. Dae-sung agreed. But that doesn't mean it wants to kill everything it sees. Predators on Earth hunt when hungry. They rest when fed. They play when comfortable. They have rich emotional lives. The Drekmore is probably the same. Over the following days, a routine developed. The human crew remained on the Vrelian ship, but they were treated well. Diplomatic communications were opened with Earth. The United Colonies government was shocked to learn about the Vrelians and the situation, but they sent their best negotiators to the Helix Nebula. Meanwhile, Dae-sung worked with the Vrelian handlers every day. The Drekmore was moved from its small cage to a much larger habitat that mimicked the caves of Vrel Prime. Soo-jin helped design enrichment activities, toys and puzzles that kept the creature's intelligent mind occupied. The change in the Drekmore was remarkable. Its bioluminescence became brighter and more stable. It began to explore its new habitat with curiosity instead of fear. It even began to play, chasing after objects the handlers would roll for it. Most importantly, its psychic projection changed completely. Instead of broadcasting terror, it now projected emotions that ranged from contentment to joy to curiosity. The Vrelian handlers, who had once been terrified of the creature, began to develop affection for it. Vextil especially bonded with the Drekmore. I always felt there was more to it, he told Dae-sung one day. But I was too afraid to try to connect. You showed me that fear doesn't have to be the end of the story. 3 weeks after the incident in the arena, Commander Thexeral summoned Dae-sung to the command deck.